What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining. So, Max and I were talking, we were chatting last week. Max and I have been doing, I think, pretty well lately, but we wanted to kind of recap on how January went, how the start of the year has gone so far for us, what's working, what isn't, um, how we have felt the trading in the month have gone so far, and what we're anticipating coming up this month, and just what we want to do better, what we want to change, what we want to keep the same, and thought it would be a valuable exercise for us to do just on our own, but also maybe the discussion could help out some other people who maybe you're finding success, maybe you're having some troubles. I know when I was getting started that it was always really helpful to hear from people who had found some success and what they were seeing, and maybe if they're having the same struggles that I was, or if they're figuring out how to avoid certain traps. There have been a lot of traps in the market lately, so I thought that it could be fun to just sit down and chat. Um, so just for a quick introduction, I think most of the people here know me. Maybe everybody on the Instagram live here doesn't know Max. I think most of them do, but Max, do you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. So I'm with Danny. I'm a profit badge holder. I have my $1 million profit badge at Warrior Trading. Him and I have kind of been going at it for a few years now, since 2020. So yeah, we're two of the few that are in there that are profitable, and hopefully we can kind of give some advice or assistance to anyone else that's looking for it.
Yeah, exactly. Max is a little bit of further along in the journey than I am. Max takes about 15 times my share size, but we trade very similar, it seems like. Whenever we're looking at certain charts and certain moves, it seems like we're looking at the same thing and taking very similar entries, looking for the same trades. So it'd be kind of interesting from that perspective. Wanted to see if we could find some other guys to hop on who it would be really interesting to get Chris on one of these since he's short biased, but maybe next month. So Max and I met at the trading summit that we had with Warrior Trading back in October in Massachusetts, and we've kind of been a bit of an echo.
And you know what? Let's see. Did this help? I think it might have been me.
Yeah, I can hear that. Is that better? Testing, testing.
Live or no?
I can hear echo on your side.
I hear an echo from you now.
You hear echo from me. All right, how do we...
And as long as it's good for them, though.
Oh, mute your Instagram. Maybe not.
All good. Danny, I just muted my computer mic or my computer audio. I don't know if it'll help or not, but
Okay.
maybe that'll help just to have one audio stream going through.
Yeah, that probably helps. Is that better?
I think that should be good.
Did that fix
Oh,
did that fix things?
hello, testing, testing. Maybe,
See
maybe
if we
not.
could get some responses. We wanted to do this live as well, at least on one platform, just for you guys to be able to ask questions or anything that you're interested in as we're talking about how the month has been for us. Yes, yes, yes.
Me?
Yes, okay now. Still in a bit of an echo with
On my side or
Max.
no?
Did you turn your phone volume down?
Yeah, my phone volume is on, like, it's all the way down right now. Hang on. What if I? Sorry guys, this is a mess right now. Got one more idea.
We'll be okay. We'll just edit this part out.
Any more ideas? Sorry guys. Okay, well, I'm trying to prop it up somewhere maybe.
Yeah, no problem. Seems like it's a lot better. Thanks, Jack. Yeah, I've been doing pretty well lately. Just want to, is the echo better? How is it from Max's side? How is it from my side?
Any better?
Is it workable? On the recording, I think it should be totally fine
Open so.
because it's just recording my computer audio. So if it's good enough on Instagram, I think we'll be fine. Yeah, okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I've been doing pretty well lately. I'm on sort of a green streak. I try not to think about it too much. It'd be interesting to hear your perspective on that too, Max, as far as like when you're doing well or when you're in a slump, how much you think about it. Because I'm in kind of a green streak right now. But I just try to take every day from zero. I try really not to think about it too much at all. And you guys who have been joining my mentor sessions on Fridays, you've heard me talk about how I used to track all my stats like so in depth all the time, every day. And it's helpful for a little while, but then it started to really get into my head. And I was really focused on like, I can't let this be $100 red day. I have to get green. And then I would make it so much worse just trying to trade something to get green, even though there wasn't anything to trade, and I should have just stayed red 100 and it would have been fine. Um, so I've actually stopped tracking my daily stuff, really. The only reason that I am aware of the numbers is because I've been sharing them on my social a lot more lately. But aside from that, I really try to not be aware and not think about like, am I on a green streak? Have I been red? I try to just trade what I'm seeing in front of me as best as I can. Um, Max, we were both in like a several month long drawdown from August. I know you got out of it. I think that I'm out of it. Like I said, I'm not really tracking, so I think I'm out of it. But what are your thoughts on that? Because I know for a lot of people right now, the market has been really hard and kind of discouraging. So, what's your approach on that?
Yeah, so I think at the end of last year, kind of quarter four, a lot of people had the expectations being quarter four that it would kind of pick up. The market normally in that period is, I'm hearing an echo. Is it my fault? Is it my fault? I hear an echo right now. And it's kind of messing me up.
I hear a bit of an echo. Try
Okay,
turning your
and I'll just
computer
go with it
volume
though.
down.
But anyway, quarter four though last year, everyone kind of expects the market to pick back up. Quarter one, quarter four generally tend to be hotter months or hotter periods then too. So for me, it was September, October, and November. I had 3 red months straight in a row. My drawdown got to be over $100,000 at the time. Of course, that's still been my biggest drawdown ever, and that really impacted me mentally though. It felt like everything I was doing just didn't work. There was days that, of course, I would kind of make some back and I would feel confident. I would get on like an 8-day green streak and I'd be like, okay, this is great. I'm turning the corner right now. And then all of a sudden I just have another red day, 2 big red days back to back, and gives back all of that 8-day period.
Mm-hmm.
So in that time, one thing that I didn't do that I know that I should have done is size down. And for me, it's a lot easier for me to size down my account rather than my share size, because I know that once I'm used to a share size, I'm okay with taking that same size every day. So I guess in order to force myself to do that, I didn't size down my account. But mentally though, that was kind of draining. It took until December for me to get out of it. So I think again too, kind of coming into this year, a lot of people are kind of on edge with that too, because I know a lot of people are in the same boat. So I think that's kind of why people are still kind of struggling right now with confidence wise. I think the market's starting to pick back up a little bit with volume. But I think that a lot of people still are, they took a hit to their confidence. So it's hard for them to kind of pick back up.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's really interesting to hear. Both of us, I think, had like a really strong burst of momentum early August and then just got like destroyed. I was red also September, October, November. And then December started to turn around. And I think really what it was, and kind of like what you were saying, people started to get discouraged and you come into quarter four and usually it's a strong quarter. And last year it just really wasn't. But I think that discouraged a lot of people. And what I started noticing specifically was that patterns that we think are going to resolve a certain way most of the time really just weren't. Specifically, like breakout trades, you'd get like a 5 cent breakout and then like a 50 cent rejection.
Mm-hmm.
And those were terrible. So um, September was like, so again, you're on a bigger scale than I am. I had like a $15,000 drawdown at the bottom, somewhere around there. Um, about 10 of it came from September, and then like maybe three and a half from October, and then November was only like 1,500 red, which is not a big deal, but again, just discouraging to not be able to put together any results for that long. And then towards the end of November is when I stopped actually tracking anything, and I started really thinking about what is working and what's not working. And I pretty much entirely cut out breakout trading. And I think that's also when I started to notice that we seem to do really well on the same setups and the same plays, which um, lately I've especially been noticing is like a bear trap. Something's consolidating for a long time. It makes an attempt at a move lower. It gets bought up super quickly, like straight up through high of day.
Right.
Those have been super fun. And that's where I've been finding the most success lately. And like
Yeah, for
actually
me,
the most,
it's been kind of similar setups for me though.
hmm
What I've been noticing a lot of is red to green moves
yeah,
after it tries to break the lows. At
yeah,
that point, once it makes a new low, I think shorts feel like they're in control and they
hmm
want to start pounding that thing with more shares. But at that time, though, when they start to see a bit of a curl and it gets back up towards VWAP, it's game over for the shorts, and we're back up to high day at that point.
yeah, I
There was
agree with
one,
that too.
what was it, MSGM for me. That was on January 31st. That was my second best day that I've had. That one
hmm
had the exact same pattern I'm talking about right now. It set a low of red at the open. It made a red to green move, went up to high a day, flushed back down. At that point, short saw that they were in control. There was topping tails. Everything looked bearish about it. And
Yeah,
all of a sudden, we got a bit of a curl, caught shorts off guard. And at that point, once we got it back towards VWAP above, making it bullish, it was, went up to $27 later that day. So
yeah, that was awesome. And
yeah, for
you
sure.
killed that. You took some risk on that too, but it
Yeah,
paid off.
definitely. Yeah. I mean, bigger risk than I'm really used to taking, even with that. It wasn't huge size though. 12,000 shares, around $15. I guess it's kind of huge size, but at the same time, it's not like, I don't know. I was willing to take the risk when I stepped up when fortunately it worked out, but
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, you have to take the risk, and the share size is kind of irrelevant. You have your certain pattern and your trade that you're looking for, and if you take the right trade that more often than not, works out for you, then share size shouldn't really matter. Over time, it should work out.
right.
Um, but yeah, you mentioned a couple things that I've been noticing in particular more than ever lately, which is topping tails and like flushes through lows, low of day. And I'm thinking specifically about how many like fake bids and fake asks we've seen lately on level two. And sometimes they're not even fake, they are getting filled. Um, but we've just seen so many of them lately. And at this point, to me, it has made me not trust bids at all. Like when I see a big bid, my first thought is that bid is going to pull, it's going to be pulled, it's going to drop, but then it, for some reason, just comes right back in. So what I've been doing and finding some success with lately is noticing where on the chart things have been being bought up. And so like where is there legitimate support and not just like these people playing games.
Right. No,
And
it's interesting you say that actually though, because this year actually I have been not even, I guess taking note of those bigger bids, bigger asks and stuff like that.
mm-hmm,
It was at the end of last year too, when we had the summit actually in October, when you guys had started talking about shorts being a possible buyer, right? So shorts might put a bid out there, a massive bid, and I never really understood why that was. But from my understanding of it now, is that a lot of shorts they want people to like put their stops there. So as soon as that bid pulls, all of those stops hit and it flushes, and they get a much better fill.
Yeah.
So ever since then, though, ever since the end of last year, honestly, I have not been focusing on big bids or big asks whatsoever.
Yeah.
Maybe when I'm in a position, I'll see a big ask and I'll start to sell some. But big bids, though, I honestly don't even take note of them anymore. I'm more so looking at price action at this point,
Yeah.
where I just see that shorts are going to get caught off guard. That's about it that I'm looking at this year.
I agree with that. Yeah, I'm looking at the bigger picture, and one other thing that I've been doing lately, I think that's been super helpful. I've been keeping the 15-minute chart up. Do you use that as well?
Actually, at the end of last year too, I started pulling that
Yeah.
one up. It was at, I think, November, December. I was like, I just got to find something that's working for me. So I
Yeah.
tried pulling that up.
Yeah, I did that too. The 5-minute chart is good for so, and the reason that you probably like me started paying attention to that is because it gives you a much better idea of like the overall trend, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And like,
500, I think, is probably the best one for, I guess, your and my style of trading, though. I think
uh-huh,
that's going to be kind of, you get more trades within that too.
yeah,
But the 1 minute, though, sorry, I'm kind of going back to last year then too, but the 1 minute of last year, I think I was just taking way too many trades based off of it and not really taking note of the overall trend. So the 5 minute, though, I started
yeah,
taking note of that this year. And so far, it's been a lot better. And I've been taking a lot less trades, a lot more quality trades. So it's been
yeah.
working out so far.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's been a huge focus for me. That's where I've been having a lot more success is like noticing where's the overall trend, where on the 15-minute chart are we actually seeing more support and resistance levels. And then we see a lot of topping tails lately, and I pay attention to them on the 5 and 15-minute because I look at those specifically as spots that it's going to break out. We've been seeing a lot of like attempts, and eventually it'll top out like on the 1 minute, and it'll start to retrace. So that makes a topping tail on the 5 and 15 minutes. Later in the day, it tries to come up again. I usually don't buy into that second attempt up because I don't want to be buying into a double top and like buy the top and get rejected, but I'll buy into a third attempt up if something is still holding up at that point and like rejecting the breakdown basically. And that's something that we were talking about too the other day was noticing like how many times is a stock trying to reject to lows but failing to. And that's been really important to pay attention to, I think
Yeah, no,
also.
you had actually made a comment. I think it was at the end of last year too. That honestly, I've been repeating it to myself and then reciting it like crazy. But you said it's the inability for something to break down, and
Yeah.
I think that is so perfect though, because it's exactly what's been going on though.
Yeah.
Is that there's a lot of shorts at the end of last year. Shorts got very, very in control. They got very excited just to take any setup they saw, and
Yeah.
now that we're seeing them kind of start to get a little bit scared at certain points. When it can't break down, they're getting scared, and it's the inability for it to break down is what's kind of moving it back up.
Yeah, and I think about that too, and it's like you have to put some thought into what is actually happening. And I like Jack's comment on the live just a second ago. That's why you think level two can be misleading because of all of the fake bids. And I think it's not necessarily that it's misleading. Like you have to think about who are you in the market with? You're in the market with other big hedge funds and market makers and people who are also trying to make money, and they're very sophisticated. And when you see something that is trying to break down and it can't, regardless of what's showing on level two, you know that there has to be somebody in there absorbing selling and wanting it to hold up because otherwise it would break down. So that's something that I've been thinking about too, and trying to position myself to be more in line with like, some people call it smart money or big money or whatever. I want to try to get in where that is happening and not in between all of the choppiness or like where there are fake bids and fake offers showing up. And that's been helpful for me to just like get chopped up less and trade less.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another thing too from last year too, that I just started taking a ton of trades, just trying to get anything, just
Yeah.
grab anything that I can. But it didn't work out. And I think that's one thing though too that honestly I've been super impressed with Ross lately with is
Yeah.
that he's just been taking so much fewer trades, I guess if that's what you want to say. But he's been
Mm-hmm.
taking a lot less trades, and he's been being a lot more consistent with his trades. He's been green. It feels like every single day, except for maybe 10% of the time he has a red day.
Yeah.
That's one thing though that honestly I respect like crazy about him though, is that he's able to size down and just accept the green days too.
Yeah.
Um, But that's something that I kind of want to take though too. And that's why I've been trying to focus on the 5 minute, is that I've been taking a lot more A quality setups, waiting for those ABCD patterns to come in on the 1 minute with 5 minute confirmation on it.
Yeah.
And it's been a much cleaner setup for me so far.
Yeah, same for me. I would agree with that. It's really interesting watching Ross trade because obviously he's still doing breakout trades and it's still working for him. Um, he has sized down, but yeah, seeing his consistency is really impressive and interesting. But he's been happy to go from last year. I don't remember when he had been having big days, but he went through a period last summer of just sizing down and taking like one to $5,000 days rather than the $50,000 days he had been having a little while back, and he's just been okay with that. It's really interesting to see, but also I think it just shows like he's the type of person who's not going to get blown out of this market. And you see so many people on social media, like on Twitter, some of these big traders, they're taking like 6-figure losses, 5-figure losses, and they're just like done with trading, so frustrated. And like if you can make $1,000 or $2,000 or $5,000 a day and be consistent with that, that's a lot of money. That's a solid living.
Sure. And I think the best part about it too is that I think the reason that a lot of us trade is for the freedom of what we have after that.
Yeah.
And Ross is done, 30 minutes after the open. So he
Yeah.
has the rest of his day. Clearly he's focusing on Warrior, but at the same time though, he has the rest of his day to do whatever he wanted to. And if we were to follow suit, we would too.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of the beauty of it though too. And he's still making really good money.
Yeah, for sure. Does anybody have any other questions they want us to talk about? We got to Jack's comment on level 2. Ricardo's asking about what are thoughts about the current market, one day no action, another day 1,000%. Yeah, it's difficult. It can be really difficult. I mean, I was kind of talking about that earlier when I was mentioning about how I just try to come in every day at zero. I don't have any expectations. You just try to do your best every day, and it can be really hard when you see something move 1,000% one day, like MSGM last week, and then it just like it doesn't move the next day, or it has an offering the next day. It can be really hard. I mean, it's just one of the skills that you have to practice as a trader, is just trying to take the best trades every day. That's something that took me quite a while to get better at. I feel like currently I'm finally getting better at that, like 3 years into my trading journey. What do you think about that, Max?
Yeah, so I can freshly comment on this one too, but I think that the best way for us to stay green though is that no matter what market is to have zero expectations coming into the day.
Yeah.
For me, Tuesday of last week was a really good day. The next day, I saw that thing go up to $80 from $20 or $27 as a high. I saw MSGM at $80 the next day.
Yeah.
And I got aggressive, and it was just stupid. I had expectations that thing is going to continue, that we would have kind of momentum in that area, and I took a fat loss. That was my biggest red day that I've had yet. So it's I guess for us, the ability to control our emotions after, I guess anything good like that though too. But the next 2 days after that then too, were we came in and pre-market looked really slow. There really wasn't much on the gap scans at all, but I still pulled out decent days because I was focusing only on A+ setups at that point, because I knew that if there was going to be anything, I have to wait for something that was decent looking.
Yeah.
So I was just waiting and I was patient. And I think that's if you guys can practice patience though too, and just I don't know, if you can just go into each day with like a zero mindset of the day before and not expect, hey, yesterday was a really good day, and if you can kind of just practice patience based on that, I think that's what sets me up best for decent days. I'm sure that's how it is for you too, Danny, but
yeah,
that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, for sure. I I couldn't agree more. And for me, it used to be more of an issue, and I know also, especially for Ross, it is or it was so typical to have a big green day followed by a big red day, because you come in the next day and you're like, man, yesterday was hot. I'm expecting it's going to be hot again. And last Wednesday, the day after MSGM ran from like what 8 to 27, and then you come in pre-market and I woke up and I like checked YouTube or something like that, and I saw Ross was streaming and it was at 80. And so I'm still in bed, but I'm trying to get out and I'm like, man, I got to get up and get on the computer. And um, it can be really hard to manage those emotions and like not have expectations and still take trades with a clear head when it's been hot or when the previous day was hot. That's definitely something that I've really had to work on. I think Jess does a really good job with that, especially.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
Jack, I like your question though too. How do you fine tune, or when Ross is up a lot on the day
yeah,
though too? I think that's a really good question though too. It did not trigger FOMO.
yeah,
For me though, it kind of does start to trigger FOMO. But lately though, I've been noticing that he's taking different trades than I am.
mm-hmm,
So I know that at this point, even though our strategies are very similar, they're still different. He's finding success in something else than I am. And I recognize that though too, and I'm sure he recognizes the same thing for us then too. That once he's watching us trade at the open and he's sitting on his hands because that's just his strategy. That's what he's been doing lately. I think that's one way that he's not getting FOMO then too. So I think just recognizing that if you don't have the exact same strategy as him, it's a lot easier to not get FOMO based off of that though too. Danny, you can comment on it too.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I kind of use him as a barometer on the market when I'm getting up because I'm on Pacific time, if anyone doesn't know that. So I'm getting up around 6 my time. So I miss a lot of pre-market action. And when I get up, I I look at Ross's P&L every day pretty much just to see like did he do well? Is he flat? Is he red? To get an idea of is there momentum today? Um, Most days he's up like 3 or 5 thousand by the time I'm hopping on, but every now and then he's up like 10, 15, 20,000, and it can be really hard to come in and be like and not be like, all right, I need to hit some wins then. But yeah, you had a really good point there that we don't trade the exact same strategy, and he uses different share size, and there are so many reasons why he might be up 20 grand and I might be red, or he might be red and I might be green. So the only thing that I really try to look at for that is like, have there been moves today? What might I want to keep looking at? What's holding up? But that's another skill too. And he's looking at other bigger traders than him too. And I know that he deals with FOMO all the time. So just like as a trader, it's something that you need to work on and practice every day. But it can be really difficult.
I've noticed lately too that I feel like Ross does really well on the extension moves. However,
Hmm.
for me, I don't do well on those extension moves, like the 10
Yeah.
1 minute candles in a row, whatever it might be. Ross
Yeah.
does really good on those micro pullbacks. I don't. I have to wait for a major pullback on it. I need to see consolidation for me to accept it for the next, I guess, next push on it though too.
Yeah.
That's my strategy, and that's kind of how I accept it though too. Is even when I see a massive push, I guess just controlling FOMO in general. I know that I have to wait for a pullback in order for me to feel a lot safer in the trade that I'm taking. So that's also another way that I kind of control that emotion or FOMO when I see Ross's up a lot though too.
Same for me, especially on those extension type moves. Manoli actually was really helpful for me with that, just in seeing him miss moves and just be like, I missed it. I'll wait for the next one. And also just taking those extensions and buying the top and just getting completely rejected on enough times to really internalize, like, if I buy it here, there's a really good chance that I am going to take a big loss, and it's just not worth it. It would make a lot more sense to just wait for it to set up. And like, if I missed it, that sucks, but it's not like there aren't going to be other trades today or tomorrow or the rest of the week or in the future. So
Right.
that's been helpful for me too, is just like, think about the longer picture. Like, do I need to buy it when it's up so far and so extended, or probably it just makes sense to just wait for it to consolidate and give another trade. That's been helpful for me.
For sure.
Tomas talking about how do you manage red trades and red days mentally. Yeah, it depends on the red trade and the red day. Like if it was really bad, the trade in particular or the day, those can be hard to get past, but you can think about why they happened. For me, I know that for a really long time, and I've gotten a lot better at this recently, I used to take a red trade like really personally. And just like getting past that has been really helpful. I mean, one thing that's been helpful is just taking better entries, giving myself a good chance to avoid having a red trade. And then if it just doesn't work, then it just doesn't work. So that's been helpful for me, practicing patience to get a better entry. And then, like, if I know I had a solid entry and it still went against me, then I can take it a lot better because I'm like, it's not really that I took like a bad trade or the wrong trade or I FOMO'd in. It just didn't work, and that's fine. Because, like, statistically, percentage wise, more often than not, that was a good trade for me. So that's kind of helpful, is just like trying to make sure that I'm taking a good position and a good trade. That helps me deal with, if it goes red, I can deal with that mentally a lot better. And then if I take a couple of those and things are just not really working, stopping before the day gets out of hand is huge. If I can't do that and it kind of blows out on me and I have a big red day, then you just try to start again at zero the next day. But that can be hard. But it's also probably the most important skill as a trader, is to be able to just, like we've been talking about, try to start each day at zero.
Yeah, I think that's something that also kind of sets, the profitable traders apart from those that are not profitable just yet, though, is
Yeah.
having that mindset to move on. And I think one thing that Danny, me, and the rest of the profitable traders do well is understand what we did wrong in a red trade. And one thing that kind of helped me to understand this when I was starting off though too is focusing on, only one strategy that I could at a time. So for me, when I first started trading, I would only take breakout trades, for like extended period, for like a week, for example. And then I would only focus on that so I could really understand exactly what I was doing right and what I was doing wrong, what did work and what didn't work. And then once I kind of started to master that one, then I went into, dip trades after that. And I think dedicating a certain amount of times to one strategy helped me, exponentially to understand each of them as a whole.
Yeah.
And then once I, kind of understood both of them, then I could bring them back together though. But I think that's one way though, that we were able to kind of get into that, mindset of understanding where the losses were happening and why they were happening. Of course, like you said, Danny, sometimes it's just not our fault. Sometimes it's really just the market or a false breakout. But there's certain ways though that, the more experience you have in the market, the more you'll understand where those might occur. So it's easier to kind of adjust to those though too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also keeping those longer time frames up has been really helpful for me on that point as well, in just finding better entries and understanding overall what is the trend, what's the bigger picture. Um, I used to see Manoli and probably you and Hamong also taking positions that I didn't understand. I was like, why would you get in here? And I was looking at like the 1 minute chart and I didn't see anything. But now that I'm looking more at the 5 and 15-minute chart, I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. It's pulled back this far on the 15-minute chart. It's probably due for a reversal soon. And if I can get in here, I have really limited risk to the downside, and I can just cut it quickly if it does keep going. But if it reverses, now I potentially have a really good position on a bigger win. And so that's been really helpful for me too, is in managing risk to the downside, but giving myself a really good chance. Like if it does reverse, which it's kind of due for, that I'm in with a really good position.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that we've also been able to take a lot better this year though too. Like I had mentioned earlier, is the red to green setups that we've been taking. It's been a lot easier to do that. I think at the end of last year though too, we didn't really get many of them. Besides this year too, I think we've been noticing more higher percentage gappers at the beginning of the day. So it's a lot easier to kind of come in and say, oh, hey, there's already one that's up 200%. So we might get some volume on this thing. We might get some eyes on it. At the end of last year, we didn't really get that. I feel like there was, like a month or two straight where the most we got was like a 50 or 60% gapper.
Yeah. Yeah, at
so
most.
That's something that's been working though for sure, Danny.
Our Zoom is going to drop off here in just a second, so I'll just rejoin it
Okay.
when it drops off. we'll still be live on Instagram. So yeah, some people have asked. We're recording this. Yeah, we'll post this later. There it goes. So let's rejoin that. Yeah, can you rejoin on that same link? Otherwise, I'll just send you a new link. There you go. All right, cool. This is because I do not pay for Zoom yet.
No point.
All right, cool. Perfect.
Sweet.
Yeah. Well, what else do we want to talk about? Feel free to throw out more questions if you guys have them. I had thrown some notes your way. I think we've talked a good bit about like state of the market and how things have felt. The market has felt hard lately. Um, if I were a beginner trader, I would imagine it would be very difficult right now. I think that a lot of the moves and like patterns and price action that we traditionally teach in classes, like bull flags and breakouts and that kind of thing, they are not really resolving in a really intuitive way right now. And so, like looking for bear traps specifically that are really working right now, it seems like the moves that are working are kind of counterintuitive at the moment, which I imagine for a beginner trader must be really hard. Like even for Max and I years in, um, the last couple of months have felt really hard. We're managing to get profit out of it, but I feel like I've had to be on my toes and like so careful all the time lately just to make sure that I don't get chopped up and like sucked into bad price action mentally, or I don't take a position that has a chance to like ruin my day.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll kind of speak on just so far this month what I've seen though too. So far, we're getting a lot better volume, it seems, than we did at the end of last year.
Mm-hmm.
December was okay with volume, but before that, though, from August to November, it was, or at the end of August to November, it was dead. There was pretty much no volume. I remember it was, I think September, or October, though, we were getting moves on the 1 minute chart. I like to look at the 1 minute chart for volume, though, and I remember seeing these things that were moving. It was the top watch that everybody's watching the chat. Had like 20,000 shares traded on a 1 minute account.
Yeah.
I can't trade this.
It's like
It just doesn't make
I
sense.
could be that whole volume.
No, I seriously though, I've taken bigger size than that multiple times, and it doesn't make sense to me to trade it though.
Yeah.
So I think that is one thing though that I'm accepting of so far this year. I like that so far. It does seem like it's been a little bit hotter. January so far, that was a really hot month for me. That was pretty good. But like you said though, the trades they're counterintuitive though. It takes a lot of I guess experience though to understand why we're taking the trades that we're taking. And the bear traps for you, exactly what you said though. I think the bear traps are what's working the best though. And I think it's again, like I said earlier though too, it's the inability for it to break down once it already breaks the low that it just made though too. It's when shorts feel like they're in control and then they start to get worried about it and then they have to start covering their position though. I think that's where I've been looking for the most trades. Again, that takes a little bit more experience though to understand and see. I'm trying to get better about kind of calling that out to the chat room though too, but there's been multiple trades. MSGM, for example, there was RSLS on Friday. That was a really nice one too.
Yeah.
GNS had multiple moves throughout the month of January so far then too. But
GNS was good. BuzzFeed even had some nice moves. MGAM, INBS I did really well on the other week. I've been noticing.
I'll answer that question real quick though too. And
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think it kind of coincides with what Danny's saying though too, or what he kind of looks for though. It can be intuition sometimes. However, though, what I really like to see and what Danny really likes to see are bottoming tails.
Mm-hmm.
And what those really mean though is that it's a level of support that whether longs are buying off of or shorts are covering off of though, it's a level of support that we're identifying though too. So what I like to look for though is a bottoming tail towards like a critical point, I guess, or sometimes even a false break down, if that
Yeah.
makes sense, or a bear trap down, for looking for shorts to start to cover and an extension move back up towards VWAP or towards high above.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I like to look for. That's one thing that I really like to see. But when I'm really patient, when I'm really on my A game, though, I really like to see ABCD setups, though. Sometimes it can be a broken ABCD setup, like Danny's explained it then too before, is it's kind of where the C and the D pattern make a new low as opposed to in between the A and the B. So it's not necessarily a picture perfect ABCD. However, though, it does, it's still pretty solid, though, if you get a good dip trade on it.
What I look for on those, though, especially if it kind of like breaks the pattern, is if it reclaims into the pattern kind of quickly, because then it's catching shorts off guard, or it's catching anybody who expected it to be dropping from here is going to be caught off guard. And if they're short, if it continues to hold up, they'll be forced to buy and cover. But anybody who is interested in going long, they're also looking at it. So
And I think the reason
that's
you
what I
find
look
this stuff
for.
too, I guess, kind of coincides with what we've been seeing in January so far, or the beginning of the year, is that at that point, shorts think that there's an ABCD setup possibly forming, and they see it break that low, the A and the B, and it continues lower, further down, and they're expecting for it to continue to curl down towards lows. But at
Yeah.
that point, though, once it kind of finds support at that A and the B point, sorry, I'm kind of going into more detail than I might need to be, but once it gets to that point, then they start to get a little bit nervous, though, that it might be making a bear trap. So that's kind of my reasoning, my logic behind it, though, too. And that's kind of why I like to take the setups.
Yeah, I agree. There are a couple things in the market that you can't fake, and that's the actual chart pattern and what's happening through time and sales. So that's mainly what I'm looking at. I would imagine you probably too. Like if I see a big bid or a big ask, I'm watching time and sales to see if it's affecting that bid and ask at all or in any way. Um, and then especially on the chart, just watching for those points that it can't break down through or it can't break up through. Um, those have been indications for me. Somebody asked, I did a Q&A the other day just on my Instagram. Somebody asked, Ross had posted a video about his favorite indicator, and someone asked what mine was. And I just said price action. You have all these indicators, VWAP, the EMAs, level 2, but the only thing really that matters is how is price action responding to like the shares that are going through in the market. And for me, that's what I like to watch. And that tells me a lot more than an indicator or like a big bid or an ask about what might be happening in the next 30 seconds or minute or 2 minutes or so.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, though, I don't even look at the time and sales. I like to see price action. And once it breaks a level, though, too, I kind of want to see how it holds.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm also looking at the level 2. Personally, I don't really care about Thinkorswim's time and sales. I don't think it's all that informative, honestly.
No.
Maybe you can. DOS, I've noticed that I'm actually a lot better at reading.
Me
However,
too.
though, instead what I like to do is just read price action, though, based on the level 2. When it starts to dip on the bid, and find support on the bid, and then get like a little pop showing that there's some support in there, buyers in that area. That's kind of how I'm, adjusting to read the level 2, or the time and sales instead. But I've never found success, though, from reading time and sales on Thinkorswim.
Yeah, I hadn't either, actually. That's a good point. I started using Thinkorswim with DOS after that trading summit in October. I bought a new Windows computer just specifically to use DOS. And the time and sales on Thinkorswim, I had never relied on it because it's really not very informative. All it shows is green or red. It doesn't show speed. So one of the things that I do really like on DOS is the orders going through the market, they flow through like the split second that they go through. Whereas on Thinkorswim, it seems that it like refreshes on a certain frequency. So the Thinkorswim time and sales really doesn't give me a good indication of like, is volume speeding up or slowing down, whereas DOS really does. And that's where I've started to find more use in it. aside from just being able to tell, like, is our orders going through above the ask but price isn't moving, or is there a lot of red going through tape but price is holding up? And those things to me are telling me, like, obviously there's a hidden seller, or somebody has to be absorbing all of that selling, and we don't know how big that buyer or buyers are. And so for me, that's an indication to get in or to get out. But yeah, that's a good point. On Thinkorswim, I really didn't use that very much. I didn't find it very useful, but with DOS, it's definitely much more useful.
Yeah, definitely. Dan, I'm going to answer a question here, though. But Tim, you're asking my strategy when I killed MSGM. I'm going to show you one example, though. I'll have a live trading archive of it then, too, posted to Warrior. I sent that out not too long ago, so I'll kind of go into that, discussing more of it. But kind of to take the overall theme, though, if you have the charts pulled up, if not, that's okay. There was an extension move. Let's see, what time was it? It looks like around 12:46, I believe, Eastern time. So around that time, though, there was, after the fresh breakout of it going from about $9 up to 16.36, there was a high of. At that point, it then pulled back, and then we saw a bounce within that minute, whatever it was, on the 12:42 candle. So we got a bounce back up to 15.22. In that time, though, I expected that to reject and come back down towards $10 or possibly lower at that point. But then in the next 4 minutes after that, though, we saw, I guess, relatively smaller doji candles, if you want to call them that, though. But what we had more so than anything was consolidation in that period. And at the time, I'll show you again on my live trading archive, but in the time, though, we found major support around 1440. So I wanted to give it some time in that area. And because I had such a strong thesis that it was going to come back down in that time, the fact that it was not breaking 1440, I wanted to continue to watch that area to see if we would get a curl off of that level. So once I saw one of those candles hit with a bottoming tail, that green candle I actually bought within seconds of it breaking out through $15. I bought 6,000 shares around 1465. So in that time, I bought 6,000 shares in that area because I didn't see it breaking down, even though I thought it was almost certain that it would break down and continue to pull back further. So again, it was the inability for it to break down, though, that I really liked about that stock. That was exactly what I had traded throughout the day before that then too on it. If you also look at that day, I'm talking about the 31st, by the way, if you're not sure. But earlier in the day, though, too, fresh out of the open, 4 minutes in, it made a low of around 705, and then about half an hour in, it then made a new low of about 685. It then bounced back up, found support around $7, and then started to curl. It was the inability for it to break down further through the low of day that shorts thought that they would be so confident on. So that's kind of why I thought that it was a really good stock. That's why I thought there was a lot of good setups on it. But again, it was the inability for it to break down at certain points, though, that I was so certain that it would continue down further on. So that's why I like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I remember vividly when I didn't catch that move from like 1440 to straight up into a halt $3 higher. I was looking at something else, but that was an awesome trade. Looking for those.
It was going to be one of my best trades that I've ever taken.
Yeah.
But I got a little bit too excited and I started taking profit. So I took 6,000 shares around, I think it was 1465. I then added, once it got up to like 1560s, I think it was. So I had like a 1517 average, if I remember correctly, with 12,000 shares. And it instantly blasted through high a day. But I took it out too early. That was about a $20,000 trade, I think. But it could have been, I saw an unrealized of like 31 or 32,000. That was insane.
That's awesome.
Crazy.
Jack asked a good question about scaling into a position on a winning versus losing trade. So that's a good question. And what you were also just talking about, you had taken that position and you added more as it was going higher. The way that I scale into positions is I will take my whole position size that I intend on taking on a dip on a low. If it goes back up to where it just was, like the support level or the resistance level where it could break out, then I can add because I'm already in heavier from hopefully 10 or 15 cents lower. And so I can double my position and still have a winning trade, even if it rejects a few cents again off of that resistance. But if it breaks through that resistance, typically that's when we see that like attempted rejection, straight back up, and then straight through highs. So that's usually how I'm taking a position and scaling out. If it keeps going against me on that initial buy-in, I'll just get out. But what that allows me to do is it gives me a much better average, much better chance of having a winning trade. So I am rarely, if ever, like buying, taking a new position at a breakout level and adding as it goes higher. Ross is great at that. That's his main strategy. For me, I just don't trade well when I do that. I take paper cuts after paper cuts because I just don't like trust it to break out with all the false breakouts we've seen. But if I can get in lower and then add to it as it comes back up, then I'll add in, and as it breaks the level, I'll scale out or I'll hold, depending on how it's acting once it breaks that level. But 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be scaling out as it breaks through that level. And then if it holds that level, I can add some more back and look for it to go higher. But taking profit is super important. It's Manoli has talked about it. I think Mark Douglas talks about it in Trading in the Zone. Taking profit is one of the hardest skills to learn. And I see a lot of people asking questions about like being upset that they took profit too early and that kind of thing. And it's like, that's a small problem to have, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And so kind of going back though too on what you're talking about though, and how I scale in and out of positions though too, what I like to do, and now it's not a perfect science though too, but and I'll kind of explain it to my course. I actually just submitted that, so you guys will see that relatively soon. I hope that it should be out within the next few weeks. But one way though that I kind of like to scale in though on my trades is taking an anticipation trade off of like a moving average. So for example, I like to look at the 5-minute for a moving average. I'll look at the 9-minute and the 20-minute moving averages. So I'll take probably a small position on that though, so that I have at least some sort of skin in the game at that point. And then I'll kind of look to add for it to kind of get back towards high of day though too, and take the breakout of it though too. That's one way that I kind of like to do it. Of course though, once we get the breakout though, at that point, what I look for though to scale out is psychological levels, like high of day or whole dollars or half dollars though. Those are major pivots that everybody's looking at that I like to look at then too. So that's kind of one way that I'll look to scale out. On my losing trades, unfortunately, sometimes I do find that I average down too much. That is something that I'm still trying to get over. My losing trades, I'm not the best at. I guess so far this week though, or last week, I was really proud of myself in the fact that I was able to, scale out earlier on the trades that I knew that I wasn't confident on, and also take less size on those. And there's really no other, I guess the only explanation for that though is just experience though, and understanding the setups that you're taking though too. So the longer that you're in the market, the longer that you understand the setups, I guess the more that you're going to have that kind of intuition though. But other than that, I guess that's my answer for that though.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I think that you and Henry and I trade very similar most of the time. Hamong, I think, kind of joins in on some of the setups that we trade. He seems to trade very similar to Jess, though, sometimes taking a lower volume stock that looks really good on the daily or that kind of thing. Got a question about, do you even bother getting in news algo spike trades, or do you just wait for what holds up? News algo spike, yeah, Max is already shaking his head. News algo spikes are so hard. Like, unless you're already in it, it's nearly impossible because they typically go straight up and then more often than not, I would say, straight back down. So if you miss the algo spike, then yeah, I just wait to see, like, does it hold up? Does it consolidate at a spot that still looks bullish, or does it just come straight back down? But if you see something going straight up on what pretty much looks like an algo spike, it's going to be really hard to catch it unless it consolidates and sets up again. That's my opinion.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what, Ross is really good at taking these.
Yeah.
And I've had too many times where I see that he's in like right as the spike happens though, and then as
Yeah.
soon as it gets up, like, oh man, okay, here's a whole dollar breakout. I'm gonna take it for this, and then it drops $1 a share,
And
and
then
I'm
you're
just
you're
pounding
buying
it.
Ross's shares as he's
Yeah,
getting
exactly.
out.
And he's up thousands. Well, I just lost exactly what he made though. So there's
Yeah.
just too many times where that happens that I've been burned. I leave him alone. I
Yeah.
would rather wait to see how the market responds. I think actually Ross just posted a video about this on YouTube. I think it was a
Hmm.
short. But I think the question though is exactly the same thing. But what he does though is he waits to see how the market kind of takes it.
Yeah.
So it gives it kind of time to just settle out and see what happens with it. And if he sees
Yeah.
consolidation that looks decent for another move up, then I think that's kind of the point that him and I will look to take it again. Of course, he'll get in earlier than I will, but that's one way that I'm kind of getting over that hurdle.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that video that he shared. It was a question about like how do you interpret breaking news, something like that. The
Yeah.
good thing for us as traders is we don't really have to interpret the news. If you're like a technical analyst, you're going to be looking at news and upcoming reports and all of that and just guessing what you think the stock is going to do. But as a trader, all you have to do is respond to how the market is trading
I
news.
will tell you what, though, there's certain news, I guess, releases though that I really do like. For example,
Sure, yeah.
I think it was GNS though that said that they were cracking down on illegal shorting,
Yeah.
meaning that like brokers were just shorting out too many shares that they just didn't have to short.
Hmm.
There's a headline like that. I really do like that because that just shows that okay, there's less shorts in the game. Shorts gonna be scared about that then too, stuff like that, or share buyback programs like that.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is, I do like certain ones. However, though, I will still wait to see how the market also responds to it then too. I'm not going to buy
Yeah.
just blatantly because of the headline.
Well, and we see certain headlines that like one company announces a headline and other companies haven't announced a similar headline yet. That company runs up 100, 200% on the day. The next day you have another company, they're like, "Oh, we're going to do this too," and they run up too. So you also just have to pay attention to like what's the theme. I think that's just more theme trading. Like GNS after that there were like at least two or three other companies that were like, we're looking into illegal shorting, and they ran. And then you go through periods where there's biotech stocks that are announcing FDA approvals or like stage 1 trial results on their cancer drug, something like that. And all of them, they're kind of just sympathy plays. So you just kind of look for a similar headline, similar wording, and you can make assumptions on that, but still you have to wait and see, like, does the market still respond to it?
For sure.
Tim is asking about VS the other day. Went into a halt up and then multiple halts down, couldn't get out.
I think that got every one of us. So
That
if
got
you did
me,
that too,
that
I
got
think it got
you,
every one of us.
that got Marcelo, I know. Um, yeah, I haven't seen something like that in a long time, luckily.
So we had actually kind of discussed this one though too, but VS though it had halted up and then it halted down. But when it resumed after that halt down, I believe that it gapped up slightly. I know it was a cheaper stock, around like 330 at the time,
Hmm.
but I believe it resumed a little bit higher than it had just halted down. So inherently, because it was a halt down and it's opening higher, in my eyes, in a lot of our eyes, that's generally more bullish than it is bearish.
Yeah.
So at that point, when I saw that it resumed a little bit higher, I was looking to buy it, and I did buy it. Unfortunately, halted right back down again.
Oh, Instagram ended. We can just go live again.
Shit. Was it like an hour long or something like that?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, man. Damn, I was making a good point there, too.
We'll just give it a second. We'll just restart that. I'm still recording, though.
Okay. Oh. I guess watch my mouth then.
That's fine. I'll just share this for now. And then go live again. Yeah, you were in a good point there. Let's add you back. Yeah, we must have been going for an hour. So I invited you there. There you go. Okay. We'll have some people coming back in. Yeah, man, VS the other day, that was some nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah. So VS though, kind of to hit on the point that I was trying to make there too before Danny rudely
Yeah, I
interrupted.
think I think we hit an hour on the stream, so we just booted it back up. Max was
But
on a
anyway,
roll
though,
there.
VS though, what we were looking at on that one though is we saw, like I was saying, we had the halt up and then halted down, and the resumption after that halted or unhalted a little bit higher. So because of that, I liked it. I thought it was going to be pretty bullish. Unfortunately, because the halt bands were so close to each other, it instantly halted down again though too. And because the halt bands were so close, I wasn't too nervous holding into that first halt down, or I guess the second halt down at the time.
Yeah.
But when that next one resumed and we saw nothing out of that, though, that was when I started to get nervous. And we really don't see that, especially with the news headlines that we've been seeing before that, though, too. Having the stock go from 60 cents up to $4 plus.
Yeah. Well, that was part of the issue too. That was part of the issue. Most stocks, there's a 10% halt band. On VS, it was only a 5% band because it started the day under $1. So the halt bands were super tight, like you just said. If it had been a 10% halt band, I think probably we would have seen the dip get bought up, but it just went straight into the halt. And like you, I got trapped from 331. I was in that halt down. It opened higher, so I thought it was going to be okay. So I think I only took a third of my position off just then to manage risk, and then it halted down again, and I was like, okay, that kind of sucks, but it's not a big deal. It's not a big position. And then it became an issue when it halted down like 3 more times, and I got out like $1 lower.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I took 9,000 shares right at 331 with you.
Yeah.
And I ended up, when it was halted down, I actually put a market order out there just to flatten my position though. And I think I ended up getting out at like 291, fortunately, because the next two
That's
halts
good.
ended up going down to $2.
Yeah.
But that got me though. And then also when I was in it earlier though too, during pre-market when MSGM had their offering, I was in BS at the time. So I took a major hit on that one then too, bringing from, I don't know exactly where I was in, but I think I tried to take a dip trade off the 20 moving average, maybe looking for the curl back up towards, 350. But instead we got a flush back down to 261.
Yeah.
So that was another bad one that I got though too. And unfortunately with that, there's really not much I can do other than timing. MSGM, there's nothing that I can do to control that. So that's another way though too that I kind of like to justify some of my losses when it's not my fault. It's not fun, but it's also kind of like, okay, what could I have done differently in that period?
Yeah, that was just nasty. The follow-up to that question was like, have you seen that before? Yeah, but that kind of thing doesn't happen frequently. So I think the best thing you can do is just like, that put me down like pretty significantly in that trade, but it's just kind of a one-off thing. Like somebody in my session on Friday had asked about, they took a big loss. They gave back like 3 weeks of profit. They were finally starting to do well, feeling good. And then they got caught in the offering that Gene had on Friday, I think it was. And they were asking about how to get past that. And my first response or first thought is like, that's not something that typically happens. So you kind of get past it. You try to think about, was there anything that I could have done to see that might have happened? Were there any indications that could have kept me out of that position like in the future? But if not, if it just kind of like happened to you and it wasn't necessarily your fault, you just cut the loss and move on and keep doing what you were doing because you had been having success.
Yeah, definitely. Any other?
What else do we have? We could wrap it up soon. We've been on for an hour. What do you have going on today, Max?
I don't have anything, Danny. It's my Sunday. I'm going to be chilling on the couch.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. How about you? You doing snowboarding?
Maybe.
Your guitar?
Yeah, maybe some of each. It's been a kind of weird day so far. It's been raining off and on with sunshine for like 15 minutes and then like rain. So it'd be nice to go outside, but
yeah, it's horrible here right now. It's blue skies and sunny and like 70-degree weather. It's just horrible.
Just terrible in Arizona. Are you in Phoenix?
Yeah, northern Phoenix.
Cool.
For sure.
Well, any other questions before we hop off?
I think it's a pretty good session so far, Danny. Good
Yeah, I
first
think
session.
so. Yeah, hopefully it's been helpful. It's been fun to talk. Like when we were at
Sure.
the summit, it was so funny. All we could do was talk about trading because I don't have anyone else in my life who day trades like we do. So
Yeah.
I think we all met up and got like years of talking about trading out of our systems.
Yeah, no, exactly. We could not stop talking about it. It was crazy. It was awesome though, because
Yeah.
anyone you try and talk to, they're like, "Oh yeah, okay, uh-huh." But when you
Yeah,
talk to you guys, it's like, "Yeah, I know this, this, this." It's
you just
awesome.
talk
It's
all
just so
day,
cool.
which we did.
Oh yeah.
Um, how often are we going to do this? I don't know. Once a month would be nice, like kind of a
Sure.
monthly recap. I was putting together my monthly thoughts the other day, and and then chatting with Max about it, and we thought it could be fun to um, do this together. Um, could be fun to do it each month. If we get a lot of good feedback, maybe on Sundays we have a stock talk. I don't know.
I think the best part about this though is that it's helping us out to kind of understand the conditions, what's working for you, what's working
Yeah,
for me. But hopefully it's helping you guys then too, and kind of taking what we're saying and bringing it to your trading then too.
yeah. Um, so do you think it's better to take the 5 or 10 cent winners and not hold to get profitable at first than to be upset about not getting the 30, 40 cents it went? Um, yeah, I mean, you always want to be looking at the chart and seeing what kind of potential a move might have in it, but I don't think there's anything wrong with taking 5 or 10 cents profit when you have it, especially it really depends on the market. Like, do we see a lot of 5 or 10 cent false breakouts? Then probably, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to take profit 5 or 10 cents in. Um, but a lot of that is just kind of understanding what has been happening lately and just respond to that.
Yeah, and I'll kind of hit on that too, though. But my first full year of trading, so it was 2021, March of 2021. At the time, that was my first full green month. That was my first six-figure month, and that was also a month where I was taking quick base hits, and my accuracy was like 76, 77%, which has so far been my highest percentage month that I've had to date. Um, and I felt so confident in myself though too. So I honestly, if you're starting off though too, I think 5 to 6 cent winners
Mm-hmm.
can be, if you can hit multiple of those a day, it won't only give you good profit, but it'll also help your confidence like crazy.
Yeah.
So you feel a lot better about yourself, about your trading then too. So if you can find multiple setups that'll give you those 5 to 6 cents minimum, I think those are excellent trades to be taking.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think especially as you're trying to turn the corner, just
Mm-hmm.
gaining confidence is a huge point in that. And if you can take 5, 10 cent winners consistently, that's going to do a lot for you mentally that will should carry over
Yeah.
to having more success. Brad's asking, is it necessarily bad to be too selective during this type of market? Um, I would say no. I think that being really selective right now is a good thing. The only thing I would caution is if you're being so selective that you're maybe down to like a trade a week and you don't really get to practice the feeling of being in a trade or in the market, then it could maybe be an issue. Maybe it would make sense to like be in the sim during the other time, but as far as like being too selective, I don't know that there is a too selective.
Sometimes I do think that you can kind of overanalyze a trade though too when you are being too selective though.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Justin made a good point though too for one of his golden rules. It's to not have too many rules. And
Yeah.
I think when you make too much of trading, then it becomes to be almost a job, and you have a hard time understanding and learning from it though too.
Yeah.
So to kind of give yourself, I guess, some leeway though too, where you think you see a setup, even if you are in the sim though too, and you just pick a setup that you think might work. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's it can be bad to be too selective, but at the same time though too, I think it is a really good thing to start to practice though, because I have been in a cycle of over trading for months now though too.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I'm coming out of it, but
Yeah. There's definitely like a good balance, but I really agree with that, with like having too many rules. If you have too many things that you're trying to think about when price is moving fast, you're just going to not take the trade at all. At some point, you need to take the trade,
yeah,
and maybe that's with small size, so that if it doesn't go well, you can just learn from it and it doesn't like really hit you financially. But if you're trading fast, like momentum trading, at some point you need to take the trade.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, should we call it a day?
I'm good at that. Quality session. Hope it was helpful for everyone else though too.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah, we'll wrap it up. Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks for the questions. I think we wanted to do something live somewhere so that we could have some interaction and some questions from you guys and try to help out. So thanks for joining in. We will both see any of the Warrior members in the chat room tomorrow morning. Hope you all have a good Sunday.
Yeah. Take care, everybody. Happy Sunday. Get some rest.
All right.
Before trading.
See you guys.
See you guys tomorrow.